How many of you have a goal, a dream, your great life within, just waiting to come out and shine for the world? Today, my guest has an incredible life, an incredible story, and I wanted to share with you how his ability to believe in himself beyond his community, his nation, and the world has really led him to lead such an amazing life. I want you to please welcome retired Lieutenant Colonel William Holloman.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I know you've got a truly busy schedule, and it's amazing how you could be sitting at the beach. You could actually be having a Mai Tai and sitting down at Waikiki, but you choose to continue to inspire humanity, the next generation, everyone that you meet. What gives you that inspiration? Why do you continue to do what you do?
Well, I think the main thing is to show the next generation that they can achieve if they believe in themselves. It's important, number one, to believe in yourself, but number two, to prepare yourself to the best of your ability. And education, I believe, is the key to that. So frequently, young people find other things that are more important to do, like watching sitcoms on television, other things that are not beneficial to them in their future, building them for the future. I believe that I work for the Air Force Academy, and when I'm out there seeking young people, I don't even talk to the average. I look for the exceptional young people, the people that I think will make good generals. I'm looking for leaders.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background, because you truly have been through struggles that the average person would give up. So tell us about your background.
Well, I think I grew up in a segregated society in St. Louis, Missouri. I say I grew up in a segregated society. It's amazing. I was so naive that I didn't know my society was segregated. I lived in a community that was close-knit. We didn't have cars. We did everything within our community. And I had no idea that it was segregated. I didn't know growing up that I couldn't go to the restaurants or that I couldn't go to the movies. We had a neighborhood theater. I could walk to it. It was half a block from my house. I never thought of going downtown to the movies. It wasn't until probably after my first leave during World War II that I discovered that I couldn't go to the movie downtown. And I was a lieutenant. But I don't think they publicized it, and I didn't see it. My church was somewhat integrated. There were Italians and Irish in our neighborhood, so I didn't think about it.
So your neighborhood, your community was actually a little bit ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, but I thought I was going to this specific school, grade school that I was going to, because my grandmother taught there. I didn't realize it was an all-black school.
That it was segregated.
It was segregated. When I went to high school, I went to a private school, and I remember the name of the school was St. Joseph Catholic High for Negroes. I never paid any attention to it, other than the fact that my family told me I was a Negro. I remember in 1942 when then Bishop, later Cardinal Haley, came to St. Louis, and one of the first things he did when he took over the archdiocese was made him take the phrase for Negroes off of our school name. And he had the kids at my school go to other schools, other Catholic schools in the neighborhood for certain classes.
So even that is...
Even that was integration. And the city fathers were up in arms because he was violating city policy, so to speak, because public schools were all segregated. And we weren't educated to know that we were living in a segregated society.
So the history wasn't even reflecting.
No. But we were taught achievements of the Negro people before and after the Civil War. So we were taught those things, but we weren't prepared for the real world, segregation in society as it was. I believe that my first real experience was when I got on the train to go to the military, and we left St. Louis but we had a special compartment. The government had bought us tickets on Pullman car with a compartment for 4 of us. We had no idea that we were in this compartment to keep us separate from the
white
other
people.
passengers.
From the white people.
Yes. And when we crossed from Indiana into Kentucky, the conductor came and told us, hey, you fellows have to move to the front car, which was the segregated coach. And we refused to leave, and the conductor insisted. We got to the next stop, and he was going to put us off the train when this white lieutenant interceded. He came and inquired and looked at our tickets, and he informed the conductor, this ticket, that compartment belongs to the United States government, and government put these gentlemen in there. They have the right to stay. And because the conductor didn't get the support of the lieutenant, he informed us that we were not permitted to go to the dining car to eat. They served us our meals in our compartment. And when the train got to Nashville, the conductor was, I believe he never said, was so angry, he took the whole car off the train to get us out of there. And then we had to move to the segregated Jim Crow car up behind the engine.
So what was your guys' conversation as this is unfolding? I mean, for you, this is first time.
This is an eye-opener that, and he really didn't tell us that we had to move because of our race.
Because you're black.
He just said, you have to move because that's our policy. But he never explained what his policy was.
But here you had a paid ticket for that seat.
Yeah. That was the introduction to the Mason-Dixon line. Because when we crossed from Indiana...
Racism and segregation.
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem was mine because I was naive. I didn't know that these conditions existed. We learned quick.
Yeah.
We got to Mobile, Alabama, and found out we couldn't go to the restroom. So we stayed on the train.
So substandard, they were expecting you to...
They expected me to know that I wasn't supposed to do these things. People in the South, I guess by nature, did conform to the social standards of their community. We didn't know that. We got to Biloxi, Mississippi, and was told that if it was a white person coming down the street, we had to get off the sidewalk.
Oh my goodness.
You know, we were not allowed to
in the same area,
be in the same area. I only went to town one time, and I was told I had to get off the sidewalk with somebody.
Get in the street, get run over.
Oh, there weren't any cars on the street in those days.
Well, there would be nowadays. You'd get run over.
Yeah. But I think I was so disillusioned that I never went back to Biloxi again.
Well, it must have been heartbreaking.
Almost 5 years. I went back to Keesler Air Force Base in 1948 as an officer. And those conditions still existed.
Still there.
Yeah,
Still.
And I said, the Air Force had integrated. I remember General Lawrence told us he can control the conduct of the airmen on the base. But once we went out the gate, it was a whole different atmosphere.
And that was so interesting. You folks, I heard you talking about that with Alex and with Mr. Carol Cox, that it was actually the armed services that were the first to do the integration.
Yes, I think if you want to compare them to corporations, the military forces is the biggest corporation in the world. And when President Truman signed Executive Order 9981, he was going where others hadn't gone. He integrated the armed forces, not just the Air Force.
All the services.
All the services.
All the branches.
Of course, the Air Force, I believe, was the leader in carrying out that, because in 1947, when the Air Force became a separate branch.
Because they were part of the Army before that.
They were part of the Army. When they became a separate branch, they began experimenting with integration. Very subtly.
And what Congress, and they didn't have the support of Washington, is what I'm understanding all the time with a lot of this.
Well, they didn't have the enforcement from Congress. There were many commanders that had existed through this segregated period. The Moors were there. They conformed to them. I believe that, General Lawrence was so successful when I went to Keesler that they chose him to go out to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas and take command of basic training, because he would be the guy, the first person that these young soldiers, these young airmen would encounter. And he was molding an integrated Air Force right at basic.
So how did that...
But his replacement came to Keesler and wanted to reinstitute segregation. He wanted to kick us out of the officers' club, kick us out of the swimming pool. He was trying to uphold the social structure of the pre-World War II period.
How did you, as an individual, how did that feel? All of a sudden people aren't appreciating or understanding your human potential. I mean, it's just, how did you keep going? I mean, it's amazing when I look back, even today, you guys talk about how beautiful life is. And that's why I wanted you on the show, because you folks are so inspirational. You are so inspirational to everyone, not only the next generation.
I think I learned early on that if I want something, I had to keep my mouth shut in order to achieve it. So I was able to, say, control any anger that I may have. I tried to avoid those situations. I wanted to fly airplanes, and that was my objective.
How did that dream come about?
Oh boy. You know, I'm different than many people. I decided I was going to fly airplanes when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And that was my dream. Why? I'm from St. Louis. And Charles Lindbergh, in 1927, flew across the Atlantic. And I think the thing that affected me the most, the thing I noticed the most, when he came back to St. Louis, they had the biggest parade for him that I'd ever seen. And we had parades for Memorial Day and Veterans Day every year, big parades.
So this you knew was something special, being a pilot
special.
flying.
And I stood on Market Street as the parade went by. My dad was there holding my hand, and I looked up at my dad, and I said, I want to be just like him. And I didn't realize it at the time. I was too young to understand what he was saying. And he said, I don't think you'll make it because you're too dark. That's all he said. I didn't realize he reminded me some years later that he had told me, that I had made the comment, and that he had told me I was too dark. And he didn't explain any more about it. It wasn't until I came back from flight school as a lieutenant that he further explained it. I'm 19 years old. I said, where's my education? But for whatever reason, our parents didn't expose us to segregation.
They didn't make a big deal about it.
No. We lived in a segregated society and didn't know it. And I think one of the real problems, I'm from a family of what we used to call mixed race. I had my mother's grandfather was in the Trail of Tears. Do you know what that is?
No.
They discovered gold in Georgia and South Carolina. And this was a Cherokee nation. And they rounded up all the Cherokee Indians and walked them to Oklahoma.
Wow. Took their land
in
away.
the winter of 34. Many of them died en route, and many of them attempted to escape, and some of them did.
Oh.
My great-great-grandfather escaped in Illinois, their families, and they settled in Illinois. Well, if you look at Cherokee Indians, many of them look white. Many of them took Anglo-Saxon names, hence our Killian name. And many of them became white.
Forgot their heritage.
They forgot their heritage. I think that because of that, I had a cousin. I think he was a second cousin. And he flew P-38s. He was white. He flew in the Pacific. I say that to say my family is very mixed up. Irish, Cherokee Indian. Also on my mother's side, there's Blackfoot Indians, and on my father's side, there's the slave-master relationship. We have found in our genealogy, I had an ancestor that fought for the Union Army, and I had an ancestor that fought for the Confederate Army.
It's all the way back.
So all the way back, long before the Civil War, we have. So I did not know when I was growing up that I could be educated freely as an Indian, because I'm a quarter Indian.
That would have been helpful, huh?
Yeah, too late now.
So what do you want for the future? What do you want to, because you folks actually have a scholarship fund, is that correct?
Yes. When we formed, we've been a kind of a get-together group ever since the end of World War II. And we had clubs in Los Angeles and San Francisco, Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis, Atlanta, Washington, New York. And Dick Fione, one of our guys, was in Detroit in 1971. And he got the great idea, why don't we form a club? So they brought that first group together, guys from all of these cities I just mentioned, joined him in Detroit. And the guy that was supposed to be here with us today, Alex, they had that first meeting at his house. And then they decided to have a reunion in Detroit, and they talked to Charles Francis, the guy who wrote this book, and said, we like the name Tuskegee Airmen. Can we use it? He had a copyright to it. He says, with my blessing. So we decided to call ourselves the Tuskegee Airmen. And one of the things that we wanted to accomplish, we wanted to include everyone who took part in the so-called Tuskegee experiment.
It's not just the pilots.
Not just the pilots.
The crew.
Everyone.
The people.
The instructors. And it takes approximately 11, 12 people to keep one pilot in the air.
Your mechanics, your fuelers.
The avionics people, the cooks, the medical people, everyone. We started about 17 years ago trying to record all of the participants. We requested records from anyone who would send them to us, because the military kept poor records. They didn't know
who all the crew
who all the people were that was involved in this program. We have better records than the military has, and we got them from the military.
And now you guys also, so Alex actually wrote a book that the contributions go to a scholarship fund, is that correct? And I think we have a picture of that. That's the Red Tail Capture, the Red Tail Free.
And this is the story that Alex wrote while he was a prisoner of war after being shot down on the 12th of August, 1944. He was shot down over France on a strafing mission. I like to say the amazing thing about that mission, this was a prelude to the invasion of southern France, was there were 5 planes shot down that day, and 4 of them ended up in the POW camp. Only 1 was killed. That's very odd when they got hit at 50 feet in the air and all of them crashed rapidly.
That so many survived.
They all survived. And this is a story of what his experiences were. I like to tell people, Alex said he was treated better by the Germans than he was by the American people.
White people.
The white people. How can... I don't know how any of the American whites can look at themselves in the mirror after hearing Alex say that he was treated better by the enemy.
The German Nazis.
Yeah, than he is at home. And I thought about it over the years. You know, many of our guys and airmen, because of the stress, only required to be in combat for a short period of time. When the war first started, we had to fly 25 missions. Mm-hmm. And as the shortages developed, got worse, they required 35. But after you flew 35 missions, you go home. Mm-hmm. Well, because of our shortages and slow replacements, we finally had to end up flying 50 missions.